Austin has a way of convincing you you're freer than you are. It's in the way Lady Bird Lake braids the city and no one agrees if it's a river. The way Barton Springs can knock the breath out of your chest in July and you'll swear it's good for you. The way a taco trailer can become a church by accident if you show up enough Sundays in a row. It's easy here to pretend your life is improvisation. That's probably why I missed the first lie when it walked past me wearing leggings and a smile. We moved to Austin from Dallas for my job. I'm in security network and cloud, the kind of paranoia you can expense. Our office is in a glass box at 3rd and Colorado where the air conditioning thinks it's a personality. I design zero trust policies and incident response run books and dashboards that light up like a city map when someone forgets their password too many times in Bangkok. I make bad days predictable for a living. My wife Lena built the opposite kind of life. She took a part-time front desk shift at Honeybird Yoga off South Lamar to get out of the house, and in 3 months she was helping run the place for free, checking people in, folding blankets like origami, mopping sweat off confidence. They caught my classes, she said. It's not a job, it's a vibe. The mat came first. Powder blue, rolled tight, strapped with a vegan leather band that made it look like a present from a person who doesn't think about money. I saw it in the back seat one morning when she cracked the door to toss in her tote. "They let me use the teacher mat," she said over her shoulder. "It's better on my wrists." "Nice," I said, a man whose wrists have never had preferences. Then came the free classes that were always full when I checked the online schedule. It became a bit. "You're not on the roster," I teased, scrolling. "Is this an underground savasana?" "They squeeze me in," she said. "The teacher loves me, and I help lock up after so it evens out." The studio had a chain of satellites. South Lamar, one at the Triangle, one tucked off East 6th, where the kombucha people breed at night. Lena drifted among them like a soft breeze that could also answer phones. She made friends, the way she always does, and one of them clamped onto our life like a tick. Her name is Kira, but in a different century the village would have called her Karen. She's the kind who turns a favor into a savings account and charges interest in compliments. She started showing up in our stories the way seasoning shows up when someone is learning to cook. "Kira's covering the desk," Lena would say. "Kira says the owner's changing the schedule again. Kira thinks we should go dairy-free." Kira had opinions about us in the way women like Kira think they're helping. She loved that I worked in cyber, but said it like it was an adjustable hat. She loved that Lena was healing and posted photos of her angelic energy on the studio's private Instagram. She loved, most of all, being invited anywhere she might be, a reflection of someone else's light. We had a rhythm. I'd bike the Shoal Creek Trail on Saturdays and pretend it was exercise. She'd help at Honeybird and come home glowing like feedback. We'd grill in the little patch of yard behind our duplex on Del Curto, and she'd tell me about the woman who cried in pigeon pose and the guy who said his hips were saved. She spoke like she lived in a movie where every scene had a meaningful lamp in the corner. The first crack wasn't a charge or a late night. It was a tone. She started calling me Sweet Man, the way someone talks to the dog when they're working up to asking you to board a plane with them and their secret snake. She'd go to the studio to help close, and when she got home, she'd smell like sage burned in a room where nobody opened a window. I made a list. That's my coping, a text file on my phone titled Notes, and inside it a little parade of timestamps and details I could pretend weren't evidence. Saturday, 9:05 p.m. says mopping after restorative, no mopping on Sunday nights per schedule. Tuesday, 11 to 1 p.m. Going to Kira's to watch Love is Blind, returns 1:48 a.m., laughs in bathroom alone. Thursday, 7:48 a.m., locks keys in car at studio, calls me for spare, Kira with her, both too cheerful for the heat. Then came the blue mat and the story I told myself that I wasn't telling a story. An AirTag is the size of a quarter with delusions of grandeur. It's made to find things you lose like keys, bicycles, dogs that don't love you back yet. It's not meant to be a moral test. But the mat is a cylinder and the strap has a stitched seam that tears open and closes with a glue stick and nerves. The AirTag slid inside like it belonged there. It beeped once when it activated. I felt the beep in my molars. I told myself it was for the mat. The mat, specifically. Not for my wife, not for my marriage, for the mat that spends more time at studios than on our floor. I registered it to the label Guist, K-E, in case it got weird. I folded the seam back on itself and rubbed the glue smooth with the butt of my thumb. Then I put the mat back in Lena's back seat and spent the next 3 hours feeling like I had already failed a test I hadn't taken yet. There is a voice that lives in my head, made out of policies and court cases and blog posts that try to turn ethics into instructions. It said a lot of things that night. It said, consent. It said, domestic surveillance is abuse. It said, you can leave without being right. It said, is this who you are? The only thing I said back was, I'm not a cop, I'm a husband, and I don't want to be either. Then I opened Find My and watched a little gray dot nap on a map of our street. The first time the dot moved, my stomach did too. Tuesday night after 9, the mat left our block and crossed South Lamar and drifted north. Honeybird South Lamar pinged. The mat paused for 20 minutes, like yoga was a thing you do when you intend to do it. Then the dot didn't go home. It crossed the river, slid past the glowing iceberg of the Long Center, and veered west toward Seaholm, that big concrete cathedral where they turned a power plant into an aesthetic. The dot curled into the Seaholm residences like a cat into a sunspot. If she's helping at Seaholm, that's new, I told myself out loud in the kitchen to make the thought sound less like a plea. They do pop-ups. The dot went dark for 2 hours, which is what AirTags do when an iPhone near them doesn't fuss. At 12:51 a.m., it woke up like a guilty conscience and took the exact route back to our block, with a detour through a 7-Eleven where she likes the jelly donuts for reasons that contradict everything else she believes about health. I could have asked. I could have said, hey, I stuck an AirTag in your mat because my brain's a raccoon and it stole my sleep. Where were you at midnight? I did not. Surveillance does something to your tongue. It makes it carry its own weight in the wrong part of your mouth. Wednesday, the mat did it again. Friday, it went to a different building, North Shore, with the views Lena isn't supposed to see for free. The dot liked parking garages. It liked staying until the kitchens up there were closed, and the gym was empty enough for the equipment to look like art. Saturday morning, I woke up with a plan that made me hate and love myself in equal measure. I would let the dot tell me enough of the story that any other story would sound like a deliberate lie. I would not break into her phone. I would not demand confessions without facts. I would build a timeline like I do for a breach, with every sensation and guess labeled as such and every fact linked to a time and a place. I would give her a chance to hang herself or hand me the rope, and I would do it elegantly because my pride has pretensions. Kira called at noon. She never calls me. Is Lena with you? She chirped. She's at Honeybird Triangle today, I said. She was supposed to be, Kira said. Nina's locked out and Lena's the one who took the second set of spare keys. Her Life 360 says she's at Whole Foods, but that was an hour ago. Life 36s, I said, because I was in a rare mood where imitation felt like a good joke. She said you like tracking, Kira giggled. Anyway, if she comes home, can you tell her my mom's recipe for green juice needs actual green things, not grapes? She keeps making it too sweet. Okay, bye. She hung up before I could muster the energy to be polite. The mat was sleeping at Seaholm again. A mat is not a person, it's a person-adjacent item. But in a city where everything has an app, you can convince yourself an item knows what it's doing. At 4, my brother Ethan texted that he had reservations for 6 of us at Moonshine Sunday Brunch, me and Lena, him and his wife, our parents, and from Waco, for a night to see what Austin brunch culture looked like. Moonshine has the kind of biscuits that make you agree to a second mortgage. It's also across from a garage Lena had been visiting in the dark like it charged her. Perfect, I typed. We'll be there. Saturday night, Lena said she was doing an after-hours deep clean at the studio because someone had spilled a smoothie in the HVAC vents, which is a sentence I'm pretty sure contains 4 lies and a threat. I nodded and kissed her on the temple and watched the mat cross the river prickly as a conscience. At 1006 a.m., the AirTag did something it had never done. It told on itself to the wrong phone. AirTags aren't supposed to stalk. They have guardrails. If one follows an iPhone around long enough, the iPhone tells the human there's a device moving with you. If the human taps it, the AirTag will squeal and show its owner if the human is determined and knows how to read a QR code. My iPhone is our iPhone account's owner. There's a switch buried 3 menus down called Item Safety Alerts. I turned it on for Lena's phone months ago when she lost a set of rental keys under a couch. I turned it back off when she found them. I hadn't thought about it. At 1006 a.m., her phone decided to think for me. It popped up a notification that read, AirTag found moving with you. It even helpfully offered to play a sound. She texted me a screenshot with a string of question marks that looked like confetti in a nightmare. Then, is this you? I thumbed typing bubbles and deleted them and typed again because my brain likes to practice the wrong speeches first. Finally, I wrote, I put a tag in your mat. I was worried you were leaving it at studios. I should have told you. Omission, Your Honor, plus intent and no apology, which tells you a lot about how I felt about the politics of honesty that week. There was a long pause, long enough for me to watch the little dot tremble like a hand on a doorknob. Then she typed, "I'm at Kira's. We took the mat so she could do stretches." I said nothing. The dot rested at Seaholm. There are a dozen reasons you could be at Seaholm after midnight that wouldn't shame your grandparents. None of them involve a mat. At 1027 a.m., the tag pinged from a concrete garage level labeled P2. At 1029, it pinged from an elevator lobby. At 1031, my phone told me the owner of this AirTag can see your location because Apple loves fairness more than marriages. I closed my eyes and thought about the difference between defense and offense and the way a line can look like a circle after midnight. I didn't confront her Saturday night. I waited. You don't stop a breach while the intruder is still inside the system. You wait for them to trip the last sensor, and then you trap them somewhere brightly lit with witnesses. Sunday morning, we put on nicer shirts than our feelings merited and walked into moonshine holding hands like the kind of couple that orders the sampler on one plate. Mom hugged Lena like a small person trying to hold back the ocean. Dad signaled for the server with the gallantry of a man who believes service is holy. Ethan grinned at me in the way brothers do when they don't know what to say without making permanent decisions. Kira showed up uninvited 11 minutes later. She breezed through the door with a smile like a coupon. "This city is a small town," she said breathlessly. "I was walking by and I saw your mom through the window and I thought, fate." Mom said, "Bless you," to a sentence that was not a sneeze. We ordered. I watched Lena butter a biscuit like the knife was heavy. She kept touching her wrist where a watch might have told her to breathe. Kira kept complimenting the server and then ignoring him, which is a kind of theft. I let the table be happy for 14 minutes. Then I put my phone on the table like a neutral coin and pressed the side button until the screen lit and tapped speaker. I didn't look at Lena when I said, "Call Milo." Milo is not a real name. It's the name someone gives you at a patio bar when he wants to be both forgettable and charming. The only reason I had it attached to a real person is that men like Milo never keep their day jobs entirely out of their night jobs. The studio had a community sponsors page with 3 logos, one of which was his condo's property developer. His real last name was on a PDF about a tax abatement. A search pulled up an HOA newsletter. Another search coughed up a peppery LinkedIn brag about urban placemaking. A third did the thing the internet always does. If you give it a few dollars and a grudge, it gave me a phone number. The line rang. Lena stared at the salt shaker like it was the good kind of bomb. Kira picked up her napkin and fluffed it, eyes bright the way people's eyes shine right before a train arrives. Mom poured more coffee she would not drink. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose, which is how he prays in public. "Milo," a man said, turning the O into a flex. "Hi, Milo," I said pleasantly. "It's Noah. We haven't met. I'm Lena's husband." A breath. You can learn a person's posture from one breath. His had a couch in it. "Hey, man," he said quick. "I didn't know she was... Is this... What's up?" The table went stadium quiet. The server arrived with plates and did a dance I will remember forever. He put everything down as if we were at a normal brunch, blessed his own choices on the way out, and left. "What's up?" I said, keeping my voice in its suit. "I'm at brunch with my parents and my brother and my wife and Kira from the studio. I'm calling to ask you, on speaker, not to lie." "That's aggressive," Kira said, then blinked at her own mouth like it had acted without clearance. "Hey, listen," Milo said. "If you want to talk man to man, we don't." "Can you hear yourself?" Mom said. "She has 9 siblings. She can curdle milk with her tone. You do not say man to my son while you're stealing his home." "Ma," Ethan murmured, "you're at moonshine." Milo started the sentence with "listen," and then put so many words after it that he forgot how to stop. He did not deny things. He did not confess. He did the thing men do when they're still in the middle of a story they wrote for themselves, where the first act is a fling, and the second act is a surprise, and the third act involves him becoming even more interesting. I let him talk himself into a corner with sentences like, "We connected," and "She's not happy," and "This is not about you." He was wrong about that last one. Everything about me is about me. I waited until he finished. Then I said, "Cool, stay with me. We're going to add someone." I tapped again. I had found her number because Instagram is a crime scene if you look at it sideways. There's always a birthday post a wife makes because she's in love with a story and thinks telling it out loud makes it safer. The wife's handle led to a Facebook with a business page for a hair salon. and the salon's Yelp had a phone number, and the phone number had a listing in White Pages dot something with an address that matched a corner of Seaholm where the valet boys smoke on breaks. "Hello," a woman said, tight, cautious. "Hi," I said. "Is this Bianca?" "Yes," she said. "Who is this?" "My name is Noah. I'm calling from Moonshine on Red River. I'm with my family. I'm calling with my wife and your husband on speaker." A silence you could mind. Then, "Is he there?" "I'm here," Milo said, and suddenly his voice was smaller. "B, You don't get to be me," she said. "What did you do?" "He's having a friendship," Kira blurted. "A real friendship, with a woman who is not being seen at home." "Kira," Lena said, and the way she said it was a prayer you say when you realize you've brought the wrong saint. I lifted the phone an inch so the two microphones on it could catch all of us like a boom mic. "Bianca," I said, and I kept my tone clean enough to eat off. 3 nights last week, my wife said she was helping close the studio. Her mat traveled to Seaholm. I have location pings from an AirTag I put in the mat because my brain is a jealous raccoon. I have the building's exterior camera logs thanks to your HOA's habit of emailing them to the community after every car break-in. I have a screenshot of my wife's recently deleted album showing a photo of your lobby bench with her water bottle in the corner, and a 1-second live photo that captured your husband's voice saying, "Stay." There are no chat threads on her phone. There's nothing in Messages or Signal or Instagram. Everything is cleaned, but recently deleted doesn't delete for 30 days. I'm calling you because I'm done being the only person in the room who knows what room we're in. "Recently deleted," Mon repeated, like my tech crime had just become a family vocabulary word. "You went into her phone," Kira said, like I had keyed a Tesla. "She took a shower," I said. Her phone dinged. I picked it up to put it on Do Not Disturb because I am thoughtful. A banner at the bottom said, "Recently deleted, 29 items. It did not require a warrant." "I didn't delete anything," Lena whispered, which would have been convincing to someone who didn't live with her being a genius about how to be bad at lying. "B," Milo said, "the stupidest syllable in the world, I love you." Bianca laughed one time, a hard exhale that sounded like somebody stapled shut an invoice. "Love is not a verb that hides in a garage," she said. "Noah, are you recording this?" "No," I said, "but it's happening in front of Pancakes, and there's a teenager 2 tables over pretending not to listen while she sends every word to a friend." The teenager did not pretend. She raised her fork like a judge. "I'm coming," Bianca said. "Don't feed him if he's in the room. He can pay for his own brunch at home." I hung up before the part where everyone apologizes to someone who wasn't asking. Then I turned the phone face down and folded my hands because if I didn't hold them, they would turn into a performance I couldn't defend later. My dad sipped his coffee like it had become whiskey. My mom looked at Lena the way people look at stained glass when the sermon's bad. Ethan rubbed his forehead with the base of his thumb. Kira started to cry. "I did not know the scope," she sniffed, which is a thing people say when they want to be both complicit and innocent. "I thought we were helping. He said he was going to leave. He said he had a terrible marriage. He said she was mean to him. He said she didn't believe in yoga." Lena stared at the table. She had started wearing a thin gold chain to class. It caught the light on her collarbone when she swallowed. I tried not to memorize it. "You helped her sneak into my building," Bianca said 15 minutes later when she arrived, "because the timeline of our humiliation needed to be efficient." She wasn't loud. She wasn't theatrical. She looked like a woman who had learned every trick grief uses to disguise itself as patience. "You used your studio key. I have the video of you propping open the residential door with a trash bag and waving her through. You took a selfie in the elevator and deleted it because you're not as careful as you think you are." Kira blanched the way milk does when it thinks about lemons. "That was for safety," she said. "We were making sure she didn't get harassed in the lobby." "You used a guest key code that you are contractually obligated not to share," Bianca said. "We require that vendors meet residents in the lobby. You violate that, you lose privileges." I already called the studio owner. She said, "Ethics policies," like it was her favorite playlist. "I didn't," Kira started, and then there wasn't a sentence. "Stop," Lena said, and finally looked me in the face. There was something stripped in it, like drywall without paint. "Don't break her. She's stupid, not cruel." "You recruited her," I said. "You used her. You don't get to defend her mouth with words you used to break your life." "Do you want me to list your compromises?" she said, soft, and the question was crueler than anything we'd said all morning. "I have a spreadsheet," I said. "It's labeled. I can print it for you." Bianca pulled out a chair and sat. Milo had not arrived yet. He was on his way, or hiding in a hallway, or practicing a speech in a mirror that had not forgiven him once in its life. She set her purse on the floor and crossed her ankles and stared at the big red neon moonshine on the far wall like it was an altar. "What do you want?" she asked me. "Less than I thought," I said. "I wanted to see if I could scare her back into my life. Then I wanted to punish him. Then I wanted to be admired for my composure. Today I want to leave with my ability to look at my own face at night. That's it." She nodded like we had agreed on a restaurant. "I am going to pack," she said, mostly to herself. "I am going to go to my sister's. I am going to stop buying Greek yogurt because he eats it and I don't like it, and I have been lying to myself about that for 8 years. Ethan slid a plate toward her. "You need sugar," he said. "There is never a wrong time for French toast." She smiled at him in a way that made me love my family more than my dignity. "You're not wrong," she said, and took a bite that looked like an oath. Milo showed up 20 minutes later at the door, face washed with the kind of repentance men buy from drugstores. He scanned the room. A toddler pointed at him and yelled, "Daddy, in a different family," which is as good an omen as any. Bianca didn't stand. She didn't look at him. "Go home," she said without raising her voice. "Change the sheets, put my grandmother's jewelry in a bowl like it's precious even if you never noticed it when it was on my neck. Then put your phone on the counter and walk away from it. Then put your phone on the counter and walk away from it. If you pick it up while I'm in the house, we will have a legal problem instead of a personal one." He reached for the back of the chair across from her like a person who thinks furniture agrees with him. She didn't look up. He let go. The server reappeared with the reflexes of a veteran and steered him out with a glass of water and the promise of a check that did not belong to him. Kira wept into a napkin. Mom rubbed her back because muscle memory is bigger than judgment. I paid. I tipped like I was trying to buy the table's ability to forget us. Then we walked into the Austin glare. It was one of those days where even the shade admits defeat. Bianca hugged my mother because that's what you do when another woman witnesses your life and doesn't turn away. She touched my elbow once, a gesture so small I'll keep it like a coin. Then she walked away like someone who had a list to do and the dignity to do it without narrative. At home, Lena packed a bag. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't give me the speeches designed to fold me into a blanket. She put soft pants in a duffel, and her face wash in a travel bottle, and her ring on the dresser, and her phone on top of it like a note. I looked at the screen. It was off. I pushed it toward her. "For later," I said, trying to sound like a person who knows how to bless anything anymore. "I cleared everything," she said. "You don't need to look." "I already did," I said. "The geotags and recently deleted were enough. Live photo is a snitch. You took a picture of your shoes and it captured his building's lobby chime in the 1-second clip. You don't have to confess." "I'm sorry," she said, and the words didn't feel cheap because she didn't try to make them decorate anything. I thought I could have 2 lives and then pick. I thought if I didn't name it, it didn't count. I thought helping at a studio made me a good person even if I was becoming a worse wife. "You were never bad at being a wife," I said. "You just stopped being mine." She nodded like she was thanking a server. "I'm going to Kira's." "You're going to tell her you got her fired," I said. Her eyes lifted, surprised. She hadn't heard yet. I handed her my phone. I had an email open from the studio's owner, Tessa, because Bianca was as good as her promises. The subject line said, "Vendor access and staff ethics." The body said what bodies say when people are about to lose simple things. Kira had been removed from shifts and barred from after-hours access. Tessa copied a policy PDF that used words like key control, boundary, and client safety. It wasn't cruel, it was efficient. At the bottom, an apology to me and a separate one to our broader community. That's Austin, you get caught breaking rules, and the rules apologize for catching you. Lena read it and sat on the bed like a person who trusts furniture more than air. "She'll hate me," she said, small. "She'll hate you for a week," I said. "Then she'll tell everyone you wronged her. Then she'll sell a story about how she left because of toxicity, and the sightlines in the studio were never right for Joy." "You are not funny," she said, almost smiling. "Hate that about you." "I am hilariously boring," I said. "I make good charts." She zipped the duffel. "What happens now?" she asked. "I stopped knowing where your mat sleeps," I said. "We separate. We do lawyers gently. We sell, or I buy you out depending on who wants the lemon tree more. We tell our parents there won't be grandkids from this house. We give everything back that we borrowed from nicer versions of ourselves. We try to be kind, and we almost get there." She put her hand on my arm the way she used to when she didn't want to interrupt my typing but needed to confirm I belonged to the same planet. You were good, she said. I was lonely and sloppy and mean to my own face. You were good. I wanted to be mad enough to get high on it. I wanted to monologue. I wanted to punish loudly in a way the neighbors would remember. Instead, I took the AirTag out of the mat and put it on the counter and wrote Gerst K-E-Y on a sticky note and stuck it to the tile. I'm going to walk, I said. Take whatever you need. I walked from Del Curto down to Zilker like the map was a staircase. At Barton Springs, people who had done nothing wrong were punishing themselves happily with cold. A kid screamed triumphantly after not dying. A couple made out at the edge of the pool like a dare they'd already won. I sat on the grass and let Austin be Austin Farrell, and gentle, stupid, and smart, sweaty and patient. Then I called my brother and told him we were going to be boring for a while. It didn't explode. That's the thing you'll imagine about a betrayal, that there will be a crescendo and a coda and a satisfying cut to black. What we got was paperwork and meetings and a new Google Calendar called Logistics. We did a mediated separation that made me admire every social worker in Texas. She took a short-term lease near the Triangle with a view of a parking lot that would humble a saint. I kept the duplex and a chair that looks good in photos and makes your back hate you. We divided the records like spoils of a weird war. I cried in the car twice in 1 week and then not again for a month because grief knows how to ration itself when it has to get you to work. Kira texted me 5 days later. It was a paragraph that had been edited by adrenaline and shame. She said she was sorry. She said she had lost sight of the collective good. She said she'd been swept up in Lena's story and didn't understand the gravity. She said gravity twice. She asked me to talk to Tessa because the studio was her community and she had nowhere else to charge. I wrote back, I hope you find a community that asks less of your ethics. Then I muted the thread. Bianca sent me an email from a real address with a long subject line that looked like a recipe. She included 2 PDFs, the HOA's incident number and a letter she'd sent to Milo's employer because corporate America loves the phrase, behavior inconsistent with our values. She thanked me for calling her publicly and early. She said it saved her a year of becoming someone she would have had to leave later anyway. I wrote back that I was glad I could be a floor instead of a fire. She said she got it. I started sleeping in the middle of the bed. Lena started taking classes in the middle of the day with her mat under a different strap. The studio unfollowed both of us. Tessa sent me one last email a month later with a new policy attachment and a line that said, "We're putting AirTags on rental mats for inventory only." I laughed for the first time in a way that had air in it. If you're waiting for the part where we fix it, I don't have it. If you're waiting for the part where I become a hero, I also don't have that. I have a list of things I did that I can live with. I didn't put a camera in our house. I didn't post screenshots with names blurred and ask the internet to hold court. I didn't make my mother hate my wife in a way that would live longer than we would. I made a clean 40 seconds of truth and played it where it couldn't be argued with. I put a tag in a mat and let it tell on a life that didn't want my opinion. I called a woman and told her the thing that would ruin her day and maybe, eventually, save her year. I walked away without stealing anyone's version of myself. Do I wish I had never looked? Yes, on every even-numbered day. Do I wish I had looked sooner? Yes, on the odd ones. Do I think I did the kindest violent thing available to me? I think so. A kid at the office asked me last week, after a lunch, and learn about insider threats, whether there's a difference between security and suspicion. I told him, security is a policy, suspicion is a mood. One of them writes things down, one of them throws things. My advice, if you are unlucky enough to need it, is to write everything down and throw nothing. Let the house carry the echo for you. Let the brunch table become a courtroom for 12 minutes and then never again. Let the mat be the villain if you can't stand looking at the people for an hour. Then take the tag out and go outside. Sit on the grass, touch something that doesn't ask you to forgive it. What would you have done if you were me? Would you have said nothing, tried to become a better man, and hoped the mat learned manners? Would you have thrown the phone into the river and the marriage after it? Tell me in the comments how much privacy you think love is allowed to keep before it's just a lie with incense. If this story made you look sideways at a yoga mat, hit like so. It finds the next person watching a dot cross a river at midnight. Subscribe for more and share it with a friend who thinks free classes never cost anything.